Dust climbed the air as the drifter shoved through shoulders and elbows, taking the heat of jeers on his coat. On the block, the girl stood with her wrists bound and her chin held high, steady as a nail in old wood. The auctioneer rattled numbers. A rancher barked a bid. Another man doubled it. The drifter raised without blinking, eyes locked to hers, voice flat and quiet. Laughter jumped, then faltered when he did not look away. "Sold," the auctioneer snapped, palm slapping the post, and the pen went silent. Even the flies paused in the heat. A dog barked once, then hid. He counted coins into a dented pan, one by one, clean and slow. Each ring cut the noise thinner. The last coin fell, and the crowd leaned as if the sound could be caught. "You bought trouble," a man called. "I bought a person," he said. "You bought a lie," someone hissed. "We will see," he answered. He stepped to the block. "Come down," he told her. She stepped, calm and sure, boots landing on wood, then dirt. No one touched her. "Walk," he said. She walked. No rope joined them, yet the air between them tightened like wire. They crossed the yard. Men with cups paused mid-drink. A badge watched from the shade, patient as a wolf with a bone. The drifter offered a canteen. She drank without looking away, then tipped the last drop to the dust. "Your name," he said. "Later," she said. "Now." "Later." "I paid to stop them," he said. "You paid to quiet yourself," she said. He did not answer. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you looked at me and did not flinch." "I looked at everyone," she said. They stared at the price. He nodded once. They passed the mule pens where heat moved off hide in shimmering waves. "You plan to tie me when night comes?" she asked. "No." "Tie my ankle to a post?" "No." "Then what?" "Walk, eat, sleep. Alone. As you want. And you." "I keep watch." "From what?" "From men like me." She weighed that, then let it stand. "You got paper for her?" the badge asked as they neared the gate. "I got money," he said. "Paper's cleaner," the man said. "So is water," the drifter answered, and the badge did not move aside. Outside the fence, the noise thinned. A boy held the gate and stared at the girl like she was the end of a story he had only heard in pieces. "Thank you," she said. The boy flushed and touched his hair as if smoothing courage. The road lifted into heat. "Why me?" she asked again. "Because your eyes said not to look away," he said. "Is that all? Enough for today?" "You think I am weak," she said. "I think you're tired." "I am both," she said. "And I am not done." He believed her because he felt the same. They reached his mule tied beyond the last tent. He cut a chewed knot and braided the end tighter. "Ride," he said. "Walk," she said. "We trade at the creek." "Fine." He cupped his hands. She set her boot light and rose on the shift of his lift, steady and balanced. "You had a gun," she said. "Why not show it?" "Guns make men brave," he said. "You are not brave." "No." "Good. Say your name," he said. "You first." "No." "Neither of us," she said, and the silence held between them like a thin plate. A wagon rattled past with sacks of flour and the smell of old onions. The driver stared too long. The drifter stared back until the reins snapped and the man looked ahead. "They will follow," she said. "Yes." "The badge or the men?" "Both." "You will fight." "If I must." "You always must." "Not always." "Then today is strange," she said. She kept her hands on the saddle horn like it was a pulse. He matched the mule's gait, telling himself that distance could be a kind of rope that did not burn. When the town noise was a memory, she spoke again. "Why did you not blink?" "Because you were already staring. I wanted to see if you would look away when I decided something about you." "What did you decide?" "That you owe a child." His chest tightened. "You are lying." "Maybe." "What do you want?" "A door that shuts from my side," she said. "I can give you a door," he said. "Keys too." "I do not want your keys," she said. "I want your fear." "Take it." "I already did." Her eyes softened and held. They did not look back when the auctioneer started selling a busted clock and a trunk no one dared claim. The town folded behind them. The road tilted and the sun drifted right like a slow hand. The mule pulled and snorted. The girl sat straight, steady, unreadable. The drifter kept step and tried not to count his breaths. When the wind shifted, he caught the iron smell of the cut rope left on the block. He tasted dust and thought of water. He walked on while the air between them now weighed more than iron. The road bent away from the last tent and the sound of men drinking. Dust hung behind them, slow to settle. He walked beside the mule, eyes on the path, boots grinding in the loose gravel. She sat straight in the saddle, wrists free now, the rope coiled under his coat. The silence felt like it belonged to her, not him. "Why'd you buy me?" Her voice cut through like she'd been holding it in since the gate. He didn't look up. "Felt like it. That's all. That's all you need. I didn't ask what I needed. I asked why." He kept walking. The mule's hooves beat a slow rhythm in the dirt. "You got money to burn, or you like making enemies in front of a badge?" "Not the first time. And you're still breathing." "Mostly." She leaned forward on the saddle horn. "You're bad at answers. You're good at questions. That bothers you." "No." "Then tell me." He reached for the mule's bridle, tightening it when the animal shied from a rattling bush. "Didn't want them to have you." "You think I'm yours now?" "No. You think I was theirs. I think they wanted you like they wanted the land, cheap and quiet. And you wanted me loud." His eyes stayed on the road. "Something like that." She sat back, watching his hands on the reins. "You shake when you lie." "I'm not lying. You're shaking." "That's the mule. That's you." A crow barked from a fence post ahead, the sound sharp in the empty stretch. She waited until they passed it. "I know your name." He didn't slow, but the reins twisted tighter in his grip. "You heard me." "I heard." "You're not going to ask how." "I already know how." "Then you know what else I know." "You know pieces." "I know enough." "You don't." She smiled, small and slow. "I know the name they don't say in daylight." He stopped walking. The mule flicked an ear, restless. "You want to keep talking," he said, "or you want to get where we're going?" "Both." "You won't like either." "That's fine. I'm not here to like things." He stepped forward again, jaw set. "Say it." "No." "You just said you knew it." "I do." "Then say it." "I'm saving it." "For what?" "For when it matters." "It matters now." "Not to me." The mule's pace picked up, sensing the strain between them. The trees thinned, giving way to a dry stretch of plain. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of cattle from somewhere unseen. "You planning to trade me?" she asked. "No." "You are planning to leave me somewhere?" "No." "You are planning to keep me?" "I'm planning to get you past the next 3 miles." "That's a short plan. Long plans don't hold." "Yours used to." He looked at her then, just a flick of his eyes. "Used to what?" "Used to hold, until you dropped them. Sounds like you've been listening to the wrong people." "Sounds like you don't know who I've been listening to." The road sloped down into a shallow gully, the kind that filled quickly in rain. He guided the mule slowly, careful with each step. She stayed silent until they climbed the far side. "You look older than they said." "They, the ones who remember you, they don't remember me. They remember something they needed to make sense of." "And what's that?" "That I walked away." "From what?" "From everything." She studied him, eyes narrowed against the sun. "Then why'd you come back?" He didn't answer. "Not for me," she said. "No." "Not for money?" "No." "Then for what?" He adjusted the strap on his shoulder. "To see if the ground still smelled the same." "And do it." "Worse." The mule shuddered its ears, as if agreeing. They passed a broken sign, half buried in weeds. She glanced at it, but didn't ask. He kept his eyes forward, his shoulders tight. "Does anyone else know you're here?" she asked. "They'll know soon enough. Because of me. Because of both of us." "Then they'll come." "Yes." "You're afraid." "No." "Liar." He stopped again, hand on the mule's neck. "If you keep pushing like that, you'll find out what I'm afraid of. That's why I'm here." They stared at each other until the mule stamped impatiently. He let go and started walking. She didn't speak for the rest of the mile. When the town was just a smudge in the distance, she leaned forward again. "You flinched when I said your name." "I didn't flinch." "You gripped the reins till your knuckles went white." "That's not flinching." "It's close enough." "Then maybe you saw something that wasn't there. Or maybe I saw everything." He didn't look back, but his pace quickened. She sat straighter, smiling like she'd just set a trap, and he'd stepped into it without knowing. The mule kept its head down, steady and patient, carrying both of them toward whatever waited up ahead. The stable was empty, but for the mule and the smell of hay gone dry with age. He led the animal into its stall, closed the gate, and climbed the ladder to the loft. She followed without asking, stepping over loose boards, her shadow climbing the wall in the lantern's light. He set the lantern on a beam, pulled a blanket from his pack, and handed her a tin of beans. She ate with quick, neat bites, never looking away from him. "You always watch people like that?" he asked. "Only the ones I need to measure." "What's the measure for?" "To see if you're worth the trouble I'm in." "I didn't put you in it." "You walked into it." He lay back against the wall, eyes half closed. "Eat." "I am." "Then stop talking." "You can't sleep anyway." "I can try." Her spoon scraped the bottom of the tin. "There's a ledger," she said. He kept his eyes shut. "Plenty of ledgers in this world. This one's the sheriff's." He opened his eyes. "And it's got names. Lots of them." He shifted against the wall. "That's supposed to mean something to me?" "One of them's crossed out. Then they're dead. Or worse." "You think crossing out a name's worse than killing?" "Sometimes." She set the tin aside. "You knew her." He turned his head toward her. Slow. "Who?" She smiled without warmth. "If I tell you now, you'll spend the night trying not to dream about her." "You don't know what I dream about." "I know enough." He pulled his blanket tighter, though the air was warm. "Name." "Not yet." "You're playing at something." "So are you." The lantern's flame dipped in the draft, shadows crawling up the beams. The mule shifted below, hooves tapping soft against the wood. "She was like me," the girl said. "You're guessing." "I'm remembering. You couldn't have known her. She was here long before me, but her name's in that book, and it's got a line through it, same as the others." "How many others?" "Too many for one man's hand." "You think the sheriff wrote them all?" "I think he decided who lived long enough to be written down." He rubbed his jaw, feeling the grit of road dust. "What else do you know?" "Enough to know you've been near that ledger before." "You're reaching. You're twitching." He didn't answer. The quiet swelled until the only sound was the lantern's soft hiss. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "The crossed-out names, they're not buried in the graveyard. They're nowhere. Nowhere still means somewhere. Somewhere no one talks about. You talk about it. That's because I'm not afraid of him." "You should be." She tilted her head. "Are you?" He looked away. "Everyone should be." The mule gave a low, restless sound below. He stared at the rafters, following the grain in the wood, like it could lead him away from her words. "You could burn it," she said. "What?" "The ledger. You could burn it." "That won't bring anyone back." "It might stop the list from getting longer." "It won't." "Then maybe you just want to see your own name in it." He sat up, the blanket falling from his shoulders. "Careful." She didn't blink. "I don't scare easily." "I'm not trying to scare you." "What then?" "I'm trying not to remember." She smiled again, softer this time. "That never works." The lantern guttered, making the space feel smaller. He thought about the book, about the names in careful ink, about the ones crossed out so clean you could almost believe they'd never been there. "What's her name?" he asked again. "You'll know when we get there." "Get where?" "To the place they didn't bury her." He lay back again, closing his eyes. "Go to sleep." "You first." He didn't answer. The loft settled into silence, broken only by the mule shifting in its stall and the soft flicker of the dying lantern. Neither of them closed their eyes. Her words stayed between them, heavier than the boards underfoot, harder than the rope coiled in his coat. The dark was still thick when she spoke. No bird calls yet, no light at the loft's edges, just her voice, steady, without let-in. "I'm carrying your son." He didn't move. The blanket was heavy across his chest, but not as heavy as the words. "You're lying," he said. She shook her head, just enough for the lantern's faint glow to catch. "No." He sat up slow, rubbing grit from his eyes like maybe that would change what he'd heard. "You don't know me well enough to say something like that." "I know you better than you think." "You've got the wrong man." Her gaze didn't shift. "Do I?" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You want something from me. This is how you think you'll get it." "I'm not asking you for anything." "Then why say it?" "Because it's true." He laughed once without warmth. "I don't even know your name." "You will." "You don't know mine." "I do." Then say it. Later. The mule shifted below, hooves scraping at the stall. He stared at the floorboards like they might give him an answer she couldn't. When? He asked finally. A few months from now. No, he said. When did you decide this was mine? I didn't decide. It happened. You're reaching. I'm remembering. He shook his head. You're remembering wrong. She leaned back against the post, arms crossed. You were in town 3 years ago. You think nobody saw you. You think nobody knew where you went that night. He froze, trying to shove her words away, but they stuck. That was a long time ago. Not long enough. I was drunk. I wasn't. The silence stretched, only the mule breaking it with a low, restless sound. He rubbed at his jaw. Even if I believed you, you do. Even if, what are you expecting me to do about it now? Carry the weight. I've been carrying my own. Then this won't feel different. It's not mine. It is. Prove it. I don't need to. He stood, pacing the length of the loft. The boards creaked under his boots. You think saying this ties me to you. I don't need to tie you. You came on your own. I came to get you out of that yard. You came because you can't stay away from the things you broke. His hands curled at his sides. Careful. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. She tilted her head, watching him. You keep saying that, but I don't see it in you. You don't know what you're looking at. I'm looking at a man who can't run from the truth, even when it's still miles off. He turned his back to her, staring at the ladder, the way down, the way out. Say you believe me, she said. No. Say it. Not a chance. Then keep pretending. He closed his eyes, her voice digging under his ribs like a knife slipped in easily. He could see the street in his mind, the lamp over the saloon door, the heat of a summer night when he should have kept walking. You think I'm proud of this, she said. I think you're using it. You're wrong. Then what's the point? So you stop lying to yourself. The mule's tail thumped the stall wall. Below, he ran a hand over his face, trying to scrape the memory clean, but it clung. You don't know what I've done since then, he said. I don't need to. I know what you did that night. You weren't the only one there. I was the only one who mattered. He turned to face her again, jaw tight. What do you want from me? Nothing, just for you to hear it. And then you decide what kind of man you are. He stared at her, searching for a crack in her calm. There wasn't one. The lantern burned lower, throwing their shadows long against the beams. Neither of them sat down. Neither of them closed their eyes. The words hung there, heavier than the air, heavier than the rope coiled in his coat. The shack leaned into itself like it had been waiting to fall for years. Boards warped, roof sagged, door hanging on one hinge. He stopped in the doorway, letting his eyes adjust to the dim. She walked past him without pause, boots crunching over glass and dirt. You've been here before, she said. He didn't answer. She crouched near the far wall, running her fingers along the floorboards until one shifted under her touch. She pried it up, the wood groaning like something waking. Beneath it, wrapped in a scrap of canvas, was a blackened ledger, edges curled and brittle. She lifted it carefully, setting it on her knees. This is yours. He stayed where he was. I don't keep books. This one kept you. I don't know what you mean. She opened it. The smell of smoke rose from the pages. Half of it was gone, eaten by fire. But what remained was written in a steady hand, dark ink on yellowed paper. She turned the pages slowly until her finger stopped. Here, she said. He stepped closer, despite himself. The ink was faded, but clear enough. His name, right there, next to a number circled in red. You know what that is? She asked. No. Yes, you do. It could be anything. It's not anything. He looked away. What are the other names? Some I know, some I don't. Most are crossed out. And mine isn't. Not yet. The wind slid through a gap in the wall, stirring dust across the floor. She held the book tighter. Who burned it? He asked. Maybe the sheriff. Maybe someone is trying to clean his mess. And it ended up here. It was meant for you. I don't take gifts. This isn't a gift. She tilted the ledger toward him, showing the red circle again. This is a debt. I don't owe him anything. You did once, enough for him to write it down. That doesn't mean... It means something was bought with your name on it. He met her eyes. What? That's what I'm asking you. I don't know. You're lying. He stepped back. Put it away. No. Put it away before it falls apart. It's already falling apart. The wind came again, stronger this time, catching the blackened corners. Tiny flakes of ash drifted into the air. You think I wanted to find this? She said. I think you wanted me to see it. Same thing. She closed the book, holding it against her chest. Whatever he bought with that payment, he still thinks he owns it. Maybe he does. Do you want him to? He didn't answer. You paid for something once, she said. Now it's time to pay for it again. I didn't pay for anyone. Then why's your name here? Maybe to remind me. Of what? That I should have left and never come back. The shack creaked in the wind, loose boards knocking against each other. She slid the ledger back into its canvas wrap, tucking it under her arm. You're keeping it? He asked. Yes. You think that's wise. I think it's mine now. It'll get you killed. So will you. He almost smiled at that, but didn't. You carry it. You'll have to decide what to do when someone asks for it back. I'll tell them it burned. They'll know you're lying. Then I'll make sure they don't live long enough to prove it. He studied her for a moment. You talk like you've done this before. I've had to. The mule snorted outside, restless. He glanced toward the open doorway. We should go. We're not done. We are for now. She didn't move. Do you know what was bought with it? His voice was low. I said I don't. And I said you're lying. The wind found the open ledger before she could wrap it fully, flipping a page back and scattering ash into her hands. It clung to her skin before lifting away, carried out the door and into the empty field beyond. She watched it go, her face unreadable. Maybe whatever it bought is already gone. Maybe. Or maybe it's still here. Then we'll see it soon enough. She tucked the book under her coat. You'll see it first. He stepped past her toward the door, not looking back. The air outside felt colder now, like the ledger had dragged something out of the shack with them. She followed, the sound of the ash still in her ears. They left the shack without speaking, the ledger wrapped tight under her coat. The wind cut through the grove ahead, shifting the branches so the sunlight broke into scattered pieces on the ground. She moved without hesitation, weaving through the trees like she knew each one. He followed, watching her boots find the narrow strips of dry earth between patches of moss. You've been here before, he said. Once. When? Long enough ago I thought it might be gone by now. What's here? You'll see. The trees opened into a small clearing. At the center, half hidden by a ring of overgrown grass, sat the well. Its stone. Lip was cracked, the rope and bucket long gone. He slowed as they approached. Is this it? She nodded, stepping to the edge. The stones were slick with damp. She bent, picked up a loose rock from the ground, and held it out in her palm. What's the point? He asked. To listen. She let the stone drop. They both leaned slightly over the edge. No sound came back. No splash, no hollow thud. Just the hush of the grove pressing in. Could be it's sealed, he said. Could be. Or just dry. Or full. He glanced at her. Full of what? She kept her eyes on the dark below. Bodies. He let out a short breath. You're guessing. I don't need to guess. That's a big claim for something you can't see. I don't need to see it. You're sure? Yes. Her tone didn't waver, and it was that, more than the words, that made him shift his weight. You're saying there's more than one. I'm saying he didn't stop at one. You're talking about the sheriff. I'm talking about anyone who knew this place was here. He looked back at the path they'd come down, the trees leaning inward like they were hiding something. Why bring me here? So, you know what your name is tied to. This has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. You just don't want to admit it. He walked a slow circle around the well, keeping a hand on the stone edge. If you're right, we can't do anything about it now. I'm not looking to do anything about it. Then what are we doing here? Standing where they stood. That's not enough for me. That's all you're going to get. The wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of damp earth from below. He stepped back, rubbing his palms on his coat. You think you know who's down there? I know one of them. Name. She looked up at him then, eyes flat. The woman I told you about in the ledger. He felt the knot in his stomach tighten. You're sure? I told you, I don't need to be. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get. The grove went quiet, except for the creak of a branch swaying above. He looked down into the darkness again, but it told him nothing. Have you ever thought about climbing down? He asked. I thought about it. And? I'm still here, aren't I? He almost smiled, but it faded fast. If what you're saying is true, you've been carrying this a long time. I'm not the one carrying it. You think I am. I know you are, whether you want to or not. He rested both hands on the stone, leaning forward until the dark seemed to pull at his eyes. If it's true, then this isn't the first hole he's filled. No, she said, it's not. The wind came again, stronger now, rattling the branches. She stepped back from the well, brushing the grass from her coat. We should go. That's it. That's it. He stayed where he was a moment longer, staring down, waiting for something, an echo, a movement, anything to prove her wrong. Nothing came. As they turned to leave, she spoke without looking back. You don't have to believe me. I don't. You will. He didn't answer. The path back through the grove felt narrower than before, the shadows deeper. The well sat behind them, silent and waiting, as if it knew they'd be back. The road bent out of the grove and into open ground, the trees falling away behind them. He led the mule, watching the dirt ahead, until a shadow slid across the path. A rider stepped out from a rise in the field, horse dark with sweat, sun flashing on the badge at his chest. The man sat easily in the saddle, one hand resting on the horn. You don't belong here anymore. The drifter's pace slowed. His fingers brushed the edge of his belt, hovering near the worn leather, but she stepped forward before he could speak. I'm carrying his son. The rider's eyes shifted to her. Is that so? Yes. The horse tossed its head, impatient. That's a heavy thing to claim, the man said. It's not a claim, she answered. The drifter kept his hand still, but his eyes stayed locked on the man. If you're here for something, say it. I just did, the rider said. You don't belong. Your sheriff sent you? He doesn't have to. Everybody knows when someone doesn't fit. She tilted her head. Everybody knows a lot of things they shouldn't. That sounds like trouble. Then you've heard right, she said. The rider smiled thin, showing no teeth. This road won't welcome you twice. Good thing we're not coming back, she said. He shifted in the saddle. You think you're safe because you've got him walking beside you. I think I'm safe because I'm not afraid to tell the truth. The drifter finally spoke. You've had your say. Move your horse. The rider's gaze dropped to the drifter's hand near his belt, then back to his face. You were warned. That's all? For now. The man tugged his reins, turning the horse just enough to pass. Hooves clopped against the hard dirt as he rode by, close enough for the drifter to smell the sweat and leather. She didn't move until the sound faded. He'll tell him, she said. I know. He'll be ready. I know. You think you can be more ready than him? I don't have to be. What then? I just have to last longer. She glanced back down the road where the rider had gone. He looked at you like he already knew you. He does. And you looked at him like you'd seen his face before. I have. From where? Another road. Another time. Friend or enemy? Neither. Both. They walked on, the mule plodding steady between them. Are you going to tell me what he meant by, you don't belong? She asked. It's the same thing they tell anyone who doesn't fit into their ledger. And we both don't fit. No, he said. We don't. The wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of hooves again, but this time it was only in memory. You think he believed me? She asked. About the child? Yes. He believed enough to ride off without asking more. That's not belief. That's fear. Sometimes they're the same thing. She adjusted the ledger under her coat. Then maybe we can use that. Fear cuts both ways. I'm fine holding the blade. He gave her a look, not quite a smile. You'd better be. They left the open stretch for the shelter of low hills, the road curling between them. The encounter hung between them, not spoken of again, but both knowing it had changed the pace of what was coming. By the time the shack came into view in the distance, the sun was lower, shadows stretching long across the dirt. The drifter glanced over his shoulder once, then again, before they stepped off the road. She noticed. Expecting company. Just making sure I see them before they see us. And if you don't, then they've already won. Neither of them looked back again, but the silence carried the weight of the warning left behind. The farmhouse sat alone on the rise, shutters hanging crooked against the pale boards, paint flaked into strips by wind and sun. The blue was faded, but still there, stubborn in a way that made it seem like the place hadn't given up, even if the people inside had. She didn't slow as she reached the steps, pushing the warped door with her palm until it swung in on a long sigh. He stayed at the threshold, taking in the smell. Dust, wood gone dry, something faint and sour under it. She crossed the room without a word, boots stirring motes into the narrow shafts of light that cut through gaps in the shutters. The crib sat in the far corner, its bars dulled to gray. She ran her hand along the top rail, slow, like the shape of it was something her fingers still remembered. "Whose was it?" he asked. She didn't look at him. "Doesn't matter. It matters enough for you to touch it. It matters less if the sheriff finds out I'm here." He stepped in, letting the door fall shut behind him. The air thickened without the breeze. Why? Because he doesn't like people walking back into their own ghosts. "You mean yours. They're all his, one way or another." He moved closer, glancing at the walls. Faded shapes marked where pictures had once hung. "You grew up here. I stayed here. Same thing. Number one means you belonged. The other means you were just kept." The floor creaked under his weight as he joined her by the crib. "It's been empty for a long time. Not as long as it should have been." She let her hand drop from the rail, turning to face him. "You think he's the kind of man who lets things go. I think he's the kind who makes sure they don't." The silence pressed in again. Somewhere deep in the house, a board popped, as if shifting in its sleep. She walked to the window, pushing the crooked shutter open with her fingertips. Outside, the hills rolled away into the same nothing he'd seen all day, but the way she stared at them made him think she saw something else entirely. "What happened here?" he asked. "What always happens. Somebody gets marked, and the rest of the world pretends not to notice." He didn't push. She closed the shutter slowly, the hinge complaining. "If he knows I came back, it won't be a question of whether he comes, just when." "You expecting him to ride up the hill?" "I'm expecting him to send someone first." He went to the other window and pushed the shutter closed without her asking. The latch barely caught, but it was enough to dim the room. "That won't stop him," she said. "It's not for him." "Then who?" "For you, so you don't have to keep looking out there." She gave him a look, half thanks, half warning, but didn't argue. They stood in the dimness, the dust settling again. "Are you going to tell me why this place still matters to you?" he asked. "It doesn't. You're lying." "Maybe, or maybe it's just the only place left that remembers me." The way she said it left him nothing to answer. He walked back to the door, testing the frame. The wood was soft in spots, eaten from the inside. "You could burn it," he said. "I could burn a lot of things. But you won't." "Not yet." He nodded, letting it be. When he turned, she was at the crib again, her fingers tracing the same paint across the rail. This time she didn't stop until she reached the corner post, where something was carved into the wood. He stepped closer. "Initials." She nodded once. "Mine, and someone else's." "His." She didn't answer. He looked at the door, then back at her. "We shouldn't stay long." "I know." "Then let's go." In a minute. The air felt heavier now, as if the house itself was holding on to her. He waited, leaning against the wall, listening to the faint shift of the boards under the weight of years. When she finally turned from the crib, she didn't look back. He opened the door, the light spilling in sharp and hot, and followed her out into it. The shutters rattled as the wind caught them, and he closed them both again before stepping off the porch. She didn't have to ask. They cut across the field behind the farmhouse, the grass high enough to catch on their legs. The hill dipped into a stand of old oaks, branches wide and low, their shadows pooling deep under the midday sun. She slowed as they neared the largest one. He saw it before she spoke, a rope hanging from the thickest branch, the knot still fixed, fibers split and gray from years of wind and rain. She stopped beneath it, tilting her head back. Her eyes stayed on the knot like it was holding her in place. "Leave it," he said. She didn't move. "My mother died here." He looked at the rope again, the way it swayed just enough to catch the light. How? She was strung up in the night. No trial, no chance to speak. He let the words settle. Why? Because she didn't do what he wanted. His jaw tightened. Who tied it? Her gaze didn't shift. The sheriff. He didn't speak. The rope moved with the breeze, soft and slow, as if remembering. She was younger than me, she said, and stronger. They still took her. You saw it? I heard it. I came after. She was gone, but the rope was still swinging. He glanced around the grove, the quiet heavy enough to hear their breathing. Why keep it here? Because he wanted people to remember. He stepped closer to the tree, running his fingers over the rough bark. Have you ever thought about cutting it down? Every day. And I leave it. So I won't forget either. The knot was solid, the kind that didn't slip. He reached for it, then stopped. What did they say she did? Nothing that mattered. Everything that mattered. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get. The rope twisted on itself, the frayed ends brushing the air. You came back here to show me this, he said. I came back here to see if it was still here, and to see if you'd touch it. I'm not touching it. Then you understand. He stepped back, looking at her instead of the tree. What did they do with her after? She's nowhere, like the crossed-out names. He nodded once. The wind pushed through the oaks, the rope swaying harder now, shadows moving over her face. You want him dead, he said. Yes. You want to do it yourself. I want him to know why before it happens. That's worse. That's the point. They stood there until the wind eased and the rope slowed again, hanging still in the quiet. He turned first, heading back toward the field. She followed, but not before glancing once more at the knot, her expression unreadable. They didn't speak as they crossed the grass. The oak stayed behind them, the rope hidden by leaves. But he knew she could still feel it there, swinging in her mind even when it stopped. The crackle reached him first, faint under the whisper of wind through the boards. He opened his eyes to an orange flicker leaking through the gaps in the wall. Pushing the blanket aside, he stepped to the door. She was in the yard. Crouched over a shallow pit, flames licking at a heap of paper and fabric. Smoke rose in thin, twisting lines carrying the smell of scorched ribbon and old dust. He walked closer, boots soft in the dirt. What is it? She didn't look up. Scraps. From where? The barn. He glanced toward it, dark and still at the edge of the yard. What kind of scraps? Paper, clothes, hair ribbon. He watched the fire chew through a strip of faded blue, the edges curling into black. Whose? She stirred the heap with the stick. The sheriff's girls. His voice flattened. The ones who never came back. She nodded once. You're sure? I don't need to be. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get. The flames caught on something thicker, maybe a book cover, maybe leather. It split in the heat, spilling ash into the pit. Where exactly in the barn? He asked. She nodded toward the far corner without turning her head. You want me to look? No. Why not? You'll see enough in your head without going in there. The fire popped, sending a spray of embers into the night air. He stepped back, the smell settling heavier now. You could have left it where you found it, he said. I could have left a lot of things. But you didn't. I'm not good at leaving. He studied her in the glow, the way her face stayed calm, eyes steady on the burning pile. You think he kept them as trophies? I think he kept them as warnings. For who? For anyone who thought they could walk away. The last of the paper collapsed into ash, revealing a small knot of fabric at the center. She reached in with the stick, dragging it to the edge where the fire caught slower. What is that? Part of a dress. From one of them. From more than one. He didn't ask how she knew. The ribbon burned last, curling into itself before vanishing. She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. You done? He asked. For now. He looked again toward the barn. Are you going to tell me what else is in there? No. You planning to burn that too? When it's time. The wind shifted, carrying the last smoke toward the hills. She stepped past him toward the house, not waiting for him to follow. He stayed a moment longer, watching the fire die into a bed of faint red coals. Whatever she'd pulled from the barn was gone now, but the smell clung to the air and to him like something that wouldn't wash off. The rain came before dawn, steady and cold, soaking the yard until the dirt turned soft underfoot. When they stepped outside, the air carried that clean, heavy smell that follows a night storm. She stopped halfway to the barn, eyes on something half buried near the path. She crouched, brushing wet mud away with her fingers. A glint showed through, dull but unmistakable. She lifted it out, a sheriff's badge, edges worn, backpin rusted. Yours now, she said, tossing it toward him. He caught it without thinking, the metal slick in his palm. I don't want it. You've been carrying it a long time. I've never carried this. In your blood, she said, since the night I first met you. He looked down at the badge, then back at her. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly. He closed his hand around it. This belongs to him. It belongs to anyone willing to do what he's done. I'm not that man. Not yet. The rain tapped against the brim of his hat, rolled down his collar. He kept his eyes on her. You think this changes something? It already has. I could throw it away right now. But you won't. He glanced toward the field, the badge still warm from her hand. It's just metal. It's more than that. It's a door key. It's a mark on your back. It's an invitation you don't get to refuse. He shook his head. I'm not taking his place. You don't have to. You just have to stop pretending you're not in it. The mud sucked at their boots as they moved toward the barn. He slipped the badge into his pocket without realizing, fingers brushing it once before falling away. Have you ever worn one? She asked. Once. And I didn't like the weight. You still feel it, though. Some weights don't go away. She gave a thin smile. Now you're telling the truth. Inside the barn, the smell of damp hay rose sharp. The mule shifted in its stall, uneasy with the sound of rain hitting the roof. She moved past it, running her fingers along the wall like she was counting boards. You think he lost it here, he said. I think he left it here. For me? For whoever came looking. He leaned against the door frame. And you think that's me. I know it's you. He didn't answer. The badge pressed against his leg, small but impossible to ignore. She stopped at the far wall, turning back toward him. You can put it on, or you can keep it in your pocket. Either way, it'll do the same thing. And what's that? Mark you. He looked away. You sound like you've seen this happen before. I've lived it. The rain eased, leaving the roof dripping slow. He stepped outside again, boots sinking into the soft ground. She followed, standing beside him as they looked out toward the road. Are you going to tell me what you expect me to do with this? He asked. Not yet. Then why give it to me at all? So you remember what side you're standing on when the time comes. His jaw tightened. And if I decide I'm neither? You'll find that's not an option. He turned the badge over in his hand, the mud washed clean now, the star catching what little. Light the gray sky aloud. Without meaning to, he slipped it back into his pocket. She saw it and didn't say a word. The farmhouse door stood ajar, the hinges creaking softly as the wind pushed through the broken frame. The rain had stopped, but the air felt thick with something heavier, the quiet holding them in place. They stood there for a moment, side by side, looking into the dimness of the room, where the shadows still clung to the corners, despite the weak light filtering through the dirty glass. The photograph hung crooked on the far wall, the edges curling with age. A boy, no more than 7 or 8, with eyes that looked far too old for his face, and a mouth that was unmistakably hers. The boy's gaze seemed to pierce the distance, locked in time. She didn't say anything at first, her eyes on the picture. Then, without a word, she pulled it from the wall and pressed it into his chest. The paper was stiff, the corners chipped. He looked down at it, his fingers grazing the faded image. Who is he? Her breath caught, but she didn't look at him. My brother. He studied the photo longer, but the longer he looked, the more he felt the weight of it. The way the boy's eyes seemed to follow him. He swallowed, trying to push the unease back down. And your father. He was never in the picture. The air seemed to grow heavier as the silence stretched, the only sound the distant rumble of hooves on the wet earth. He felt it then, the pressure in the air, the sense that something was shifting. He straightened up, the photo still in his hands, and looked toward the door. We're not alone. She turned, her eyes narrowing. He's coming. He didn't need to ask who she meant. He could already hear the sound of the hooves, steady, deliberate, growing closer. Do you think he'll just leave? She asked quietly, though the answer was already clear. No, he said. He won't. Outside, the hooves were louder now, echoing in the empty yard. The drifter's hand instinctively brushed the gun at his side, but he didn't draw it yet. There was no need to hurry. She moved past him, stepping into the room. She didn't take the picture back, didn't ask him to hold it. She just let it rest against his chest, as if it belonged there. We don't run this time, she said, her voice low. Not this time. He watched her for a long moment, the fire in her eyes matched only by the cold certainty in his gut. "Are you sure about that?" "I'm sure," she said. The hooves stopped outside, the sound of the horse shifting in the yard, the creak of leather and the soft rattle of chains. He could feel the sheriff's presence like a dark weight settling in the air. The drifter walked to the door and paused in the threshold. The weight of the photo was still on his chest, but it felt different now, like something was about to break. He turned his head to look at her one last time before stepping out. She didn't move, didn't even blink, just watched him from the shadowed doorway. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of wet earth and something older, something far more dangerous. He didn't look back as he stepped into the yard. The sheriff sat tall in the saddle, the dark figure unmistakable even in the dim light. The drifter's eyes met his, and for a moment, neither of them moved. "I was wondering when you'd show up," the drifter said. The sheriff didn't answer right away. He just let the silence stretch between them, the tension in the air palpable. The sound of the horse snorted, shifting its weight on the muddy ground. "You've been a long time gone," the sheriff said at last, his voice steady, low. "Not as long as you think," the drifter replied. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "You should have stayed gone. I don't take orders from you," the drifter said, his voice flat. A moment passed. The only sound was the rain-soaked ground beneath the horse's hooves. Then, "I've come to finish this." The drifter nodded once, his hand resting on the handle of his revolver. "Then let's finish it." Behind him, he heard her voice, sharp and steady. "Don't do this." He didn't turn. The photo, still pressed against his chest, burned like a brand. The sheriff shifted in his saddle, raising his hand toward the drifter. "I'm not here for you alone. I'm here for all of it." "I'm still not listening," the drifter said. The sheriff's voice dropped. "You've got a lot to pay for." "I'll pay it in full," the drifter said. And just like that, the moment stretched, one breath too long. Neither of them moved. Neither of them blinked. Then, finally, the sheriff slid down from the saddle, boots hitting the mud with a heavy thud. The drifter stepped forward, his hand still on his gun, but not pulling it. Not yet. The sheriff's hand rested on his holster, and for a moment, the world stood still, waiting. The wind picked up again, and all that could be heard was the soft rustle of the trees. The sheriff stood a few paces away, the tension between them thick like a wall. The drifter's hand hovered near his gun, the leather grip familiar beneath his fingers. But he didn't draw. Not yet. The sheriff's gaze didn't leave him, eyes hard, unreadable. The horse snorted behind him, shifting in the mud, but it was the ground underfoot that felt heavier with each passing second. "You're not walking away from this," the sheriff said, his voice low, steady. "I've walked away from worse." The sheriff's lips twitched, the faintest trace of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "You think that makes you something special?" "No," the drifter said. "I think it makes me alive." The sheriff's fingers tightened on the holster, and the drifter's breath caught, his pulse quickening. He knew the look, the way a man's hand hovered before pulling a gun, slow, deliberate, like he was trying to hold back something that was about to break free. "You've been living with this for years, haven't you?" the sheriff asked, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "You think this is about you and me, don't you? You think you get to decide when it ends." The drifter didn't flinch. He could feel her standing in the doorway behind him, just a few feet away. She wasn't going anywhere either. This was between them, between him and the sheriff, the man who had destroyed everything, and maybe this was the moment he'd been running toward for years. "You don't decide this," the sheriff continued. "This town does. This land does. It's already decided for you." "I don't believe that," the drifter said. "I don't believe in your rules." The sheriff took a slow step forward, his boots heavy on the wet ground. "Your kind never does. Always too stubborn to see the truth. But you're going to learn sooner or later. You'll see that the world doesn't work like you think it does." "I already know how it works," the drifter said, voice cold. "I've seen it in action, and it's ugly." The sheriff's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. He took another step forward, closer now. The drifter's hand moved to his gun. His fingers brushed the cold metal, and, for a split second, time seemed to stretch. But before he could make a move, she spoke, her voice quiet but strong enough to cut through the tension like a knife. "Stop." The sheriff paused, but the drifter didn't take his eyes off him. I don't need you to fight this fight, she said, her eyes steady on the drifter. It's not yours to finish. The drifter hesitated, his hand still on his gun. She stepped closer to him, her presence grounding him, her words hanging in the air. Let it go, she said softly. He stood there, frozen for a moment, the weight of the badge in his pocket pressing against his chest like a confession. He could feel the sheriff watching him, waiting for a reason to make a move. But for the first time in years, the drifter wasn't sure he wanted to keep walking the same path. The silence between them stretched, thick and heavy. The sheriff stepped back, eyes never leaving the drifter. He was calculating, waiting, but the drifter didn't give him the satisfaction. You're not going to walk away from this, the sheriff repeated, quieter now. Not unless you leave the girl behind. The drifter's gaze flickered to her for just a moment. She stood tall, unflinching, not backing down. He knew, without needing to ask, that she wasn't going anywhere. Neither of us is leaving, she said, her voice steady and sure. The sheriff's eyes narrowed, the muscles in his jaw tightening. He didn't respond, just turned back toward his horse, the frustration clear in his stiff movements. You've made your choice, he said, the words bitter in his mouth. But remember, it's never just you against me. It's you against everything that keeps this town standing. And I don't care who you are, how long you've been running. They won't let you win. He mounted his horse without another word, and for a moment the only sound was the soft creak of leather and the low snort of the animal. He kicked the horse into motion, heading back toward the road, leaving them standing there. The drifter didn't watch him go. Instead, he turned back to her, his hand still gripping the gun at his side. You were right, he said. She looked at him, a flicker of something passing between them, something deeper than just the danger they had faced. About what? About letting it go, he said, his voice low. This wasn't mine to finish. Her eyes softened just for a moment. We finish it together. The sound of the sheriff's hooves faded into the distance, but the tension still lingered in the air between them. They stood there, not speaking, as the wind shifted again, carrying the smell of rain and something heavier, a feeling that neither of them would ever truly escape. But for the first time in a long time, the drifter wasn't afraid to face whatever came next.